In this video, I'm going to cover 5 podcast editing tips that everyone should know. Let's get started, and the very first thing is to make sure you choose the correct software to edit in. That can determine how easy or hard your editing is going to be. Now, for those of you just getting started, I suggest you watch my Best Editing Software for Beginners video, which will take you through Adobe Podcast. It's a fantastic text-based editor, and it requires you to do very little manipulation in the waveform. If you're getting started and you want to go with something free, Audacity is a good choice. Plenty of tutorials about that on my channel. And also, it's worth looking into DaVinci Resolve and the Fairlight capabilities. That's the audio editor inside the video editor that is DaVinci Resolve. I'm still early days with this software, and, well, frankly, I feel Adobe Audition is the superior editor. But one thing I have been recently quite impressed with is the voice isolation abilities of DaVinci Resolve. With that said, I'm choosing Adobe Audition to work in. It's something I've used for a long time, and it's really easy and fast to get a podcast edited. So the first tip, choose the correct editor for your podcast. The second tip, noise reduction. Very, very important tip. Now, in most instances, you want to get the environment you're recording in as good as possible. So get some soundproof tiles up, dampen the area, don't sit next to glass windows, try and reduce the echo. And if you are on the move, try and use a microphone appropriate to the environment. So don't go for a large condenser microphone if you're out on a conference floor. Go for a lavalier, or a nice directional dynamic microphone can be a good choice. Sometimes you can't help that noise, and you can use noise reduction techniques, such as those available in Adobe Audition. Here's a podcast I made earlier, and you'll see I've got 2 tracks, one with me and one with my guest Jason on. They're both there, and you'll see they're at different levels. We'll get onto that in just a moment. But first, I'd like to see, is there any noise going on in the background? And in order to do this, I need to open Spectral Frequency Display. It's this button up here, and now I can see the gaps in between the speech. So this is me, this is where I'm speaking, and this is the silence. Now, what am I looking for here? Well, it's easier to see if I normalize the audio first. So that means taking the maximum peak of a piece of audio and amplifying it to that peak. So if I go to Favorites, normalize all my audio to minus 0.1 dB, look at that, everything's a lot louder. And I can do the same for Jason, my guest. I can go to Favorites, normalize to minus 0.1 dB. And now I can really zoom into the gaps. And really, where there is no speech by our guest, it should be completely silent in these sections here. But you can see a little bit of mic bleed or some background noise being picked up here with the purple and red peaks. And it's the same over on my channel here. If I zoom in, I can see just a little bit of purple. Maybe that's some ground loop hum going on in between my speech. Now, it's really easy to eliminate this. Yes, you can search for a bit, but just make sure there's absolutely no speech in it and no breaths. You just want the background noise of the room. And then you can go ahead and use, in effect, the noise reduction restoration tools. Noise reduction process is my favorite. Capture the noise print of only the noise. And then you can go ahead and select maybe a larger portion with some speech in it as well. And if we go to a before and after view, you will see actually right here, if I zoom in, you'll see how much it's making a difference. Actually, I'll go ahead and apply it, and you can really see now that it's turned what was a lot of purple and background noise into pretty much a black spectral display, indicating noise has been removed. It's a pleasure, and thank you for coming on. And there you go, you can hear no noise in the background and just my speech. Now, there wasn't much noise to begin with. If I undo that tool, you'll see just a little bit of background noise comes back, but that can really help. A more efficient way of cleaning up is actually setting a noise gate, and it's really easy to do this. Noise gate works in the fashion that any audio that goes below a certain level gets muted. So you want to find the sweet spot. Where is that audio you want to mute out in terms of volume, or noise floor as we'd call it, and where is the speech, and making sure you're not muffling out any speech. So to do that, again, select a portion of silence here, and then we'll go to Effects. We'll look for Amplitude and Compression, Dynamics, and we'll switch on the Auto Gate. Now you'll see if I switch this on and look at a before and after view now, you'll see it's completely black in between the speech, but also at this threshold of minus 20 right now, it's also muting out a few of my words. You can see they're very clean, but probably too harsh. Let's listen to a bit. It's a pleasure, and thank you for coming on. So I guess, well, So you can see the gate working really difficult, really hard there. It's cutting some of the starts and ends of my words. We don't want that. So a quick shortcut is Control Alt and A, or Command Option A on a Mac. And that will give you the peak amplitude of the silence, which is minus 63. So we know that actually in order to set up an optimal noise gate, we can go in and we can switch it on, just the noise gate. This is this bit over here with these dials. And we take this right the way down to minus 60, for instance. Actually, yeah, the threshold, the furthest it goes is minus 60. Because I've got a really good noise floor, I don't need an aggressive noise gate. But look at the difference it's now making. It's muting out the silence from my room completely and leaving my speech intact. And now it shouldn't be so clipped.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for coming on. So I guess, well, before we get into how you're using Adobe Audition currently.
And you can see how it flicks on and off as I go silent, giving a little bit of leeway for my words to breathe. So that's a really well set noise gate. And again, noise reduction, noise gates, these are very important. A lot of modern mixers now, like the Rodecaster Pro 2 and the Mackie DLZ Creator, come with these things built in. So you don't really need to worry that much, but post-production, it's always good to just check spectral frequency and look for any of those noises and use a gate or noise reduction to get rid of them. Now, what about audio levels and enhancing the voice? Well, this is where I might start to work in multi-track, a mode where I can mix two tracks together. And if I give this a name, podcast, and then bring in Mike, that's the host, on track 1, and Jason, the guest, on track 2, we'll see that everything fits together nicely. So that where I was recording this, I got two different tracks, one for me and one for my guest. But you'll see that they're totally different levels. So for instance, if I play a bit of Jason into a bit of me, you'll look down here at the level meters and you'll see how Jason is a lot louder than me.
It's been quite an amazing journey, and thanks so much for having me on the show today, Mike.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for coming on.
Okay, so you can see Jason was here at about minus 4 dB, and I was down here at minus 12 dB. That is just not good enough, and it's a really terrible experience for your listeners. Thankfully, tip number 3 on audio kind of leveling out and a little bit of EQ can help you solve this issue really easily. Here in the multi-track of Audition, Control or Command A to select everything, right-click, match clip loudness, don't touch any of these settings, leave them as default as you see on my screen, click OK. It's going to make Jason quieter, might make me a little bit louder, but it'll look at all the audio over the duration of the recording and match them to be exactly the same volume. So it doesn't work the same as normalization, where it looks for the maximum peak, which means it could capture laughter or a clap and then normalize to that. This is looking at the whole audio sequence. And now, if we zoom in and play back, you should see these levels matching a lot better. Let's try.
It's been quite an amazing journey, and thanks so much for having me on the show today, Mike.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for coming on.
And as you can see, yeah, both of us hitting around minus 11, minus 12, which is absolutely fantastic. If we wanted to go ahead and do some equalization, we absolutely could. Now, I do have some great presets for processing your audio tracks. If you just want to get it done in one hit, I suggest you go and see mrc.fm/presets and get my podcast presets. They're really good for doing things like this. But if you want a basic equalization for each channel, what I would recommend is using the parametric equalizer. It's under Filter and EQ. Parametric equalizer. You will need to add it to each track. One of my favorite presets that comes stock with Adobe is Vocal Enhancer. So stick that on track 2, and then again, you'll have to do the same thing over here on track 1. And then again, what you can do is once you've got these in and the vocal enhancer on both tracks, you can then tweak this around to your heart's content. And I've got many other tutorials on my channel on exactly how to set up parametric equalizers well, if that's something you're interested in learning deeper.
It's been quite an amazing journey, and thanks so much for having me on the show today, Mike.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for coming on.
So just a slight boost there to both voices. We can also go ahead and add things like compression to further level out any peaks, like peaks you see here. And we might go ahead now for tip number 4 and just work on the pacing and the clarity of the podcast. Now, this works pretty well whenever I'm talking or whenever I finish talking. You'll hear that my guest is coming in.
The Centrillion team.
Yeah, so it was real.
But you'll hear maybe a slight pause there. So what we might do is we might go ahead and do a ripple delete there to make that little pause faster. And to find that in the context menu, it's a right click, selecting where you want to ripple delete. Then look for ripple delete, time selection in all tracks, shortcut, Shift Command Delete or Shift Control Delete on PC. And boom, it shoves everything up.
Team.
Yeah, so it was.
And it makes that transition even faster. We could go even more. Again, Shift Command Delete and
Centrillion team.
Yeah, so it was.
There you go. It's nice. We're keeping it pacey. Other things I like to do is I like to find all the bits where I was either having my guest talking under me, or in particular, a pet peeve of mine is where I go, or during a guest's speech. So let's solo this track and have a listen. That's just a laugh.
Yes.
Yes. And all of that. And
yes.
These are my pet peeves when I interrupt the guest as they're in flow.
Yes.
I keep saying yes as he's in his flow. So what I would do is I generally go ahead and I'd scrub this track out and delete it. And the same over here. Let's listen to what's happening in the background here.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got...
Right.
So we've got my guest there agreeing with me as I'm talking. And again, for the pacing and just the general continuity of the podcast and to stop two people talking over each other, I generally cut all this out and I'd go through and cut each track there. And also, if you want to be really neat and tidy, I might go ahead and do a fade in and a fade out on each track as well. So we have seamless transitions between our guest and our host. And eventually the whole multi-track would look like that, where I've edited everything. I've got rid of the noise. I've got the same volume levels. I've got EQ on each track, maybe a little bit of compression. I've tightened things up by ripple deleting, and I've deleted when one person is not speaking. I've deleted the silence from that track because that can really, really help. I'll go ahead, I'll go to the start actually of this show and I'll delete some more stuff because we can really tighten this up and make it sound as good as possible, like so. And let's listen again here. You can also go through and, be really OCD with this and delete things like ums and ahs as well. Let's listen to this.
For Cool Edit Pro, is that...
Okay, so first of all, the guest is laughing underneath me, so I'm going to delete that.
Brilliant. For Cool Edit...
And again, I do there, so if I wanted to get rid of that, there's just the start of my... 4. Let's ripple delete that and see how it sounds.
For Cool Edit Pro, brilliant. For Cool Edit Pro, is that...
Now I could tighten that up just a little bit.
Brilliant. For Cool Edit Pro,
and that's fine. And you see, I just grabbed the title and moved it over. Now I've got a little crossfade, so that edit is more natural. And again, I can delete the rest of that. Crossfade here, crossfade here. Let's listen to the change.
For Cool Edit Pro, is that right?
That is absolutely right.
And again, I might just delete that long sort of sigh sound and then budge everything over. A keyboard shortcut I really like: select clips to end of session and to start of session. It will speed up your podcast editing no end. So I can assign these. They're not assigned by default by searching select clips to in the keyboard shortcuts. And then I'll select 4 for end of session and let's do 2 for start of session. Now, why is this important? So I've got that long breath that I've cut out and now I've got a gap. So if I place my playhead here just before this and I hit 4, now it's selected all the clips after my cursor. How cool is that? So that means I can now safely budge up this piece of speech and it takes everything after my cursor. Same if I hit 2, it's going to select all the clips before, can move my playhead along 2 and it selects all of those, or 4 and everything afterwards. It's a real ninja tool in itself to have when you're editing for clarity and pace in your podcast. So remember it, it's the select clips to feature and you need to assign it to a keyboard shortcut in the keyboard shortcuts in the edit menu of Adobe Audition. And finally, tip number 5 is just simply adding music and sound effects and jazzing up your podcast and making it sound really good, frankly. So I'm going to go in here to the start of my podcast and straight away I can use that ninja tip. Select clips to end of session 4, budge everything over a little bit, and then go into my media browser. And I'm just using one of the Music Radio Creative sound effects libraries. You can go and buy these online at mrc.fm/SFX. Easy as that. There's actually some podcast specific tracks as well. And here I've just got a nice podcast intro. And what I can do is then I can just cut off the rest of it and maybe just add, I'll just apply a small little fade out there. And again, select clips to end. Using my new hotkey, drag that in, play it back. We've got a bit of music to start. We can tighten it up if need be.
My guest today is Jason Levine, the principal worldwide evangelist for Adobe.
That actually sounds pretty decent, doesn't it? And if I wanted to, I could also add sound effects throughout the show. So again, I'll go back into my sound effects part of my library over here, and I can find maybe something like a glitch. Let's audition some of these. By the way, if you have this play button on down here, autoplay, as you go through, it's going to play you the sound effects so you can hear what they sound like. And say maybe halfway through my podcast, about the half-hour section, I want to insert a little advert or something. I can just grab this, maybe put it on its own track down here, and when the guest finished speaking, we can put this in and cut away to an ad.
It's stuck with me ever since.
I love that.
And then, of course, here I would simply place a cut by hitting Command or Control K on this track and this track. And then I can use that cool feature to select everything after my cursor. So let's do that and move that along and then grab that sound effect. And then in here, I can insert whatever ad it is I want to use. And I can also hold down the Alt or Option key, duplicate this and use the same sound effect to get back into my podcast. So there you go. 5 tips you should know for editing your podcast. If you're podcast editing, number 1, you want to choose the right software. Number 2, clean up noise using noise gates and noise reduction. Number 3, of course, getting your levels right and adding a bit of EQ and maybe even compression as well. Number 4, editing for clarity and pace. And of course, don't forget, select everything at the start or at the end of the session. It's a ninja tip keyboard shortcut you should have as a podcast editor. And finally, tip number 5, of course, adding music and sound effects. Always good fun, and it completes the sound of your podcast and even helps you to insert sponsored messages. If you're really into podcast editing and you want to watch more on this, I suggest you watch the video up on your screen somewhere now or check the links in the description. And let me know how you're getting on with your podcast editing journey. Leave me a comment down below.